Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Backyard Gardens podcast. Today is another list type episode that we got off the internet, but this one comes at you. It's very important. So we're recording this. It is February, or not, damn it, every time, April 29th. And it was written on April 25th. Okay. So these are the 7 supposedly fastest growing vegetables that you can plant in your garden right now for the summer season. And what that mean, it doesn't mean transplant. They are referring to sowing. So take that as we go through this. Right?
Sorry, fungus gnats. Did you catch me blowing them? Dude, I my the season, the time frame that I buy houseplants, rebuy houseplants to get me through winter, I've extended it. And so I have different areas where I've quarantined plants, because when I bring something in new, I can't put them with the rest of my, long standing plants, and something is amiss.
Dude, so house plants is like next level expensive. It's
Mhm.
crazy, man. It's a market that, we missed the boat. We should have gotten to that.
My uncle was like, he came and sat down and he was like literally like surrounded by again quarantine one, quarantine three. He's like, how do you remember to water all of these? I'm like, that's the whole idea. I don't. That's the reason why I'm buying some plants every 2 to 3 years because I would if I had a plant cemetery, dude, acres. But anyway, that's
there's
not
your
what we're
business idea right there. Plant
there it
cemetery
is.
and a horror movie on top of that. There it is. Speaking of which, Batavia, we have another movie that we need to watch and talk about on the show. Remind me afterwards. I just
Okay.
saw it, so we got to strike while the iron's hot, and it's in my mind. So
Okay.
ask me afterwards.
All right. I'm looking
Um,
forward to it.
yeah, me too. But before we get going, let me say this. Welcome back to the Backyard Gardens podcast. I am your host, Ben, and I am with my co host, Batavia. That's with a B. So it's Bravo, Alpha, Tango, Alpha, Victor, India, Lima. It's a B at the beginning.
Mhm, mhm. I had someone reply to a YouTube video. They were so excited. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I live near Batavia, Illinois." But they thought I was saying that I was, from Batavia, Illinois. And so when I got to the comment, I said, "Oh, okay, cool. They're still a neighbor of mine, a garden neighbor." And I'm like, "Well, my first name is actually Batavia." And they had maybe watched the second or a third video. They're like, "Yeah, I figured that out after like the second video." It's all good, man.
Well, I say that because we get Octavia a lot. So
Oh, do we? Do
yeah, we
we?
get it a lot, and so I don't like that. So it's Batavia. Get it right.
Oh, I love it. The lady that does my locks, her name is Octavia.
So I have
I
a
love her. I don't think she thinks it's odd that our names are so similar. I think it's like the most odd thing. Like anyway. All right, let's reel it back in, man.
no. Take it off course for one more second. So do you have a TV show that you watch that's just like your dirty little secret, or have
No,
you ever?
everything that I watch is very respectable.
Yeah. Well, so mine I watched. What's that show? The 100. And there was the girl in there name was I think her name was Octavia if I remember it correctly, and I hated that character. So every time I see it, I'm like, I
Oh,
hate it. But
oh,
yeah,
okay.
so it's Batavia. But if you'd like to
Mhm.
support the show, you may do so by buying some seeds from us, becoming a subscriber, Apple, Patreon, all that good stuff. Check out our Amazon list. They're all products that we use. We are not paid and don't get anything from the companies for you to see. These are products that we like and we use in our gardens. So check those out. We do get a little kickback from Amazon, but that's it. And also join our Backyard Gardens Community Garden Facebook group and check us out on YouTube. Backyard Gardens Podcast, Sandy Bottom Homestead, Be Better Garden.
And confession, my guilty pleasure, but I'm not ashamed of it. I've watched an unspeakable number of episodes of Dateline.
Mm, there's a lot of
I
seasons of
mean,
that.
they're like 20 something seasons. They do the classic like part 1, part 2, like that still is happening. And It's so much so where I have to clear my DVR because I've recorded so many episodes where I've run out of space,
Mm,
and I'll go through and do a mass delete of 100 episodes because I know it's just gonna keep on recording again, right, and there are a handful that I do watch a second time, but most of them I'm watching anew, even though it was recorded, like, 10 years ago. But anyway, yeah.
yeah.
But
Okay.
I want you all to take that and dig a little bit deeper and read between the lines on potentially who what that makes me, what I'm capable of based on the extensive number of
I
episodes
don't
I've
want to think
watched.
about that. So,
Mhm. You don't have to.
yeah. Well, we wanted to bring this to you. So, a couple things before we really get into the list and dig down. Um, well, one thing, and then we'll get into the list. One is if if these are big magazines or something like that, we'll absolutely give you the article and all that stuff. But this is written by a smaller, um, maybe even just a person, something like that. And we don't really want to step on anybody and outright blast them. So we're not going to give the article to it. But if you want to find it, you can. I mean, whatever. But there's just a lot here, and there's a lot for the gardener of 2025 to watch out for. So let's jump into it, and then I'll get back into that in a second. But it's just
Mhm.
really important that we do that. So and what we're gonna do as well is we're gonna give, if it's not good, we're gonna give you an alternative that is a fast grower for summer, but we're gonna keep it true. So if it's a cooler season crop, then we're gonna give you a cooler season crop. If it's a warmer season crop, we're gonna give you a warmer season crop. So
Mhm, mhm.
it depends
'Cause
on your area.
we also recognize that some people can grow cooler season vegetables in a kind of non-traditional time of year, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. I
there is
mean,
that too.
between the two of us, we can grow completely different things in the middle of summer.
Mhm,
So
absolutely.
I can grow some things that you either struggle with or just can't grow, and vice versa. So
Mhm, mhm.
that's life. And if you don't
Yeah.
like it, you don't get a trophy for participating. There it is. Okay, so the first one's cabbage. Yay or nay?
Fast. Will cabbage ever be fast in anyone's garden? Quick
No,
answer, no.
no, not at all. I mean, 100 days, right?
N Yeah.
If you're lucky. And if we
Yeah, because you point out already that they're talking direct sowing?
yeah, yeah, we did say that in the
Yeah,
beginning. And it's
yeah.
important to keep remembering that, but this episode airs on May 15th. So if we do the math, that's June 15th, July 15th, August 15th.
It's
That would
crazy.
be 90 days. The packages usually say 90 days for a green
Mhm,
heading cabbage, which is what the picture is on the website, is a green heading cabbage.
mhm.
That's really hard for some areas. And I'm not doubting that there's other areas where it's absolutely possible, but for the majority, that's not really a good fast growing direct sowable option.
It doesn't mean that I wouldn't start growing it now. I probably wouldn't direct sow it when you're listening to this, but it doesn't mean that I wouldn't grow it around this time of year. I just would never add it to a list of fast growing crops for this
Yeah.
time of year.
Yeah, and why are we concerned about fast growing crops? Like when you interpret this article, like the overarching goal of the article, what do you think it is? Like how did you interpret it, Batavia?
Well, I think it answers so I remember before we started, I was like, "Remind me to tell you about this." So this is
Yeah.
the this. When I'm out in the front yard garden, in the early part of spring, people are like, "Welcome back." No different than YouTube. They're like, "Where have you been?" I'm like, "I've been hibernating," right? And so they basically, I'd say 6 out of 10 people will say, "Okay, well, when do you expect to get?" Once they realize that it's not just flowers, it's vegetables. So when are you expecting to see the peppers? When are you expecting to see? I normally say, "Give me about 3 months." Right? Like, just got a general carte blanche answer, and I'd say if 6 out of 10 people ask and I give that response, 6 people are like, "Oh, okay." Like, there's a level of, like, almost disappointment for me, So, I think generally speaking, we're looking for the quickness in most everything, including what's growing in our gardens. So that's when I thought about it. It's like it's answering what the people want to know. I just
Yeah.
don't know how well of a job it's done of answering it.
Well, across the board for a lot of crops, I think 90 days is a good benchmark.
Mhm. Mhm.
70 to 90 days,
Yeah.
I mean, it's gardening. There's always a range of some sort. So I definitely think that is part of it.
Mhm.
I would say my phone keeps ringing. It's driving me crazy. When you think about it, there's a lot that goes into it, and what we need to understand as we get deeper into this is the function of germination. So when we germinate, you germinate the seeds, they pop. The first leaves that come up are the cotyledons. Is that right?
Cuddling.
Cotyledons. And
Mhm.
then what happens afterwards is it stops, and then it spends time forming roots underground, and then it'll start putting on true leaves. Well, at that point, you're going to buy it 4 to 6 weeks later. Okay. So that's usually how long it goes. And then the days of harvest is really important because that's more of a everything's perfect.
Yeah.
Everything went according to plan, plenty of nutrition, stuff like that. So,
Well, for cabbage in particular, though, because it's not just your traditional leafy green, it has a job. This is a green cabbage that they're referencing.
right,
And it's not to say that they were absolutely explicit, but we're going to go with, the visual. It is going to form a round head, and it needs to have time to do that and the conditions to do that in. Right? So, this is probably one of not the few, but this is one of the vegetables when you talk about days to harvest, there is you're generally speaking not harvesting loose head cabbage,
right.
right? If you need to, that's what you need to do, but when it comes to your desire, right, it's gonna be that 90 days to harvest. It's gonna be that 120 days to harvest depending on the variety. So, again, not fast. I think I've seen written 75 days.
Yeah. I've
But
seen
I'm not
different
buying that.
varieties give different things.
Yeah.
So I'm growing the flat Dutch cabbage that we have in our seed shop right now.
Mhm.
And it is a longer grower, but I'm
Yeah.
growing it because it's supposed to give bigger heads of cabbage.
Yeah.
So, that factors into a lot of it. But what are the alternatives for a fast grower?
Okay.
We
You or
want a
me?
grower, not a shower. Go.
So bok choy, gonna try to get us out of this. Bok choy, and only because it absolutely answers the question of fast. And while you may not immediately think, "Oh, yeah, same flavor profile," in my mind, when you kind of cook down something, it's as similar as you're gonna get when it comes to this family of crops. So that's my final answer as an alternative.
Yeah, so first of all, I love that you said bok choy. It's secretly becoming one of my favorites. It's very easy to grow, and just like Batavia said, it's very fast to grow.
Mhm.
Here's a big deviation from where I normally stand. Okay. Bok choy, if you catch it early, you get baby bok choy. I don't like baby anything really. I think it's kind of a sham. But when it comes to this, like it's absolute like it's the same vegetable, just smaller, and you can get a
Mhm.
fair amount. You can put a lot in a small space. So I think that's a great idea. And I want you and everybody listening to hold on to what Batavia just said about it not being the same, because we've got a question of the day that's going to really I think it was elegantly written in the way,
Okay.
like in the thought process behind it, because it's absolutely true. But it's really important. So yeah, bok choy is a great one. It grows a lot faster. I think in about half the time, if that, you can get something
Yeah, maybe
harvestable.
less. I was just so taken aback by holding on to what Batavia said. I was, like, sitting in that moment for a minute. But, okay. For the purpose of the question of the day, alright, I guess.
Yeah. So carrots, second one, carrots.
No.
No.
This is not we are not overlapping each other. We're not there's no timing issue. My no came quick and
Sure
furiously.
enough did. It was ridiculous. No.
No.
Absolutely not. There's nothing fast about it.
Nope.
Um from germination on up, and it's funny. Did you compare the last list that we did to this list?
I did.
And
Mhm.
do they overlap at all?
There are just a couple.
Yeah,
Carrots would be one of them.
carrots is one
Mm.
of them. Yeah, I don't think it does at all. So, I think it's an interesting crop though. It's a very interesting crop because carrots is a cool season crop that will grow into the summer. So, is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. There's no question about that at all. Nobody's denying that. But what we're saying is it is not a fast crop because I forgot to say what I interpreted the article as. That's
You
what
did.
I forgot to
But I
say.
go ahead because I have to make a note of an episode idea that just came to me. Go ahead.
Okay, so my interpretation of this episode is basically, oh crap, I've got space. I forgot to plant something. What can I get in the ground now? Or X failed and I need to put something in its place. Like that's how I interpret this. And so if that's the case, what I'm thinking is there's a little bit of desperation in the gardener's heart about getting something into the ground. So that's where I sit with this. And if that's the case, carrots maybe not a fast option, but I do
Yeah.
think that they are a good option to plant depending on where you live. I couldn't plant carrots really now, especially at the time of planting or airing this
Mhm.
episode. If when this episode was written, it was right on the edge for me.
Yeah.
So, but a good alternative. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna have to say radishes.
It's an interesting idea.
So let me be honest, everybody. We did the first couple minutes of this episode, and the internet broke on us, and that was Batavia's. Um, and so I tried to make her laugh, which clearly it's working.
Between laughing and snorting, I'm back on allergy medicine, man. I'm just a mess this spring.
But it's it.
So
She hit the nail on the head. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
It is a good one, and it's the same family. It's a root crop.
yeah.
I don't
Mhm.
know if it's technically the same family. I don't know that answer. Do you?
No, I don't think they're in the same family.
Yeah.
When I think about like even the leaf growth of it, but something crunchy, something you can eat raw, something you can eat fresh, right? You know, you could eat the leaves or the actual root itself. I think that there are not many on this list that you're gonna have like its twin.
Yeah.
Like you may have like a distant cousin. You're not even gonna have a kissing cousin. You might have a distant cousin, like third cousin removed, whatever that means. Like that's where we're gonna get you some alternatives. So yeah,
Yeah.
I again agree with radishes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was Batavia's idea. I mean, I have to admit it. Um, but it truly is fast.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I would say if I planted radishes at the time of planting, I seeded them, I think I would have a very good chance of actually getting a radish. So I think absolutely. The only issue I have with radish, though, now that I think about
Mhm.
it, is what do you do in 30 days after you harvest that radish? Like now you're back to square one almost,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
completely.
but there's other
Too
options.
fast?
You cross that
Wait,
bridge in 30 days.
a radish is too fast and too furious. You guys don't even I don't even know if we've ever tapped into, like, the dad joke that's in me all the time, like,
It's pretty bad.
that is so funny to me. Alright, okay,
Some
so,
radishes.
next up.
Cucumbers.
Too fast, too cucumbers, it's a yes for me
Yeah.
as far as fast. And it's a yes for me if you heard this episode the day we were recording it, if you heard it the day that it airs, if you hear it a month from when it first airs. I think it's a winner winner.
Yeah.
I'm gonna resist the urge to say chicken dinner.
You never resist the urge to say that. Um, so I think that I don't know the answer if it's fast, and the reason why I don't know the answer is because it is the absolute perfect time to plant it, and I've never really paid attention because once I put it in, I just expect to grow it. So, um, I'm just gonna have to say yes. You know, absolutely. I think there's no better time to plant a cucumber. What I do know is a lot of times you can get a second planting in. You know, if something happens, you can pull them and do it again. And I think that does trigger like, hey, this is a good one for this. So yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I do agree with that. So I mean that one's pretty simple. Um, here's another one. peas. And to be specific, I believe we were talking about green peas, just regular green peas.
I'm distracted trying to figure out if it's gonna be because it's a no for me, and then
Okay.
if the alternative is on me, because I'm like, dang it.
I'll give you an
Um,
alternative. I'll do it.
okay, so I mean, I think that peas are they're quicker than a carrot, but I wouldn't call them quick, right? You know, because you think about like the idea of it's not a bush pea she's talking about or he's talking about in the article. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stand by my no for fast.
Yeah, I would say no, and I'm gonna I'm gonna double down and say no for fast and no for summer. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
I think if you would have planted it a little bit before, absolutely, but we're not in that position. Again, this article is written on April 25th of 2025, and we're recording it 4 days later. So I want everybody to
Yeah.
remember that.
Well, let me just tell you this. We're gonna find out in real life whether or not this is fast because I planted peas. I sowed peas last weekend. So like when this person was writing the article, I was sowing peas quite literally.
So it's really well,
And
I,
I considered myself late by doing it. So let me just be fair here.
yeah, and I want to say this too. That perfectly highlights the differences between your garden in Chicago,
Mhm.
Illinois, and mine in coastal North Carolina.
Yeah.
Two totally different growing thought processes, planting
Mhm.
times, and everything. There's a lot of similarities, but there are vast differences. And the fact that, I mean, look, Batavia, I don't know if you know, I think this or not, but just so you know, like you're an educated person and when it comes to gardening and really everything, but when it comes to gardening, you don't make wild guesses. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Like
mhm,
I
mhm.
have the faith that you would not just be like, I need to put something on this trellis. Let me throw peas in. You know, I don't think he would do. It'd be
Mhm,
like, oh,
mhm.
it's September. I'm gonna grow black eyed peas because I got space. Like I know you wouldn't do that. So
No, no.
and that speaks to what we were saying in the beginning, like when we give these recommendations and stuff like that, like we try to keep it because there are people that can grow these throughout the summer, and you could very well be one of them. I know I'm not because mine die from the bottom up. They start to die out. So
And that's a part of the reason why I went ahead and sowed them. We've had a question of the day that's been in a similar vein of you will only know if you try. Now, the trouble with peas in particular, because I really could have had them in the ground a month prior, right? And would have expected probably a couple of weeks growth out of that, which really mattered because they would have started to get established in cooler weather. But the thing is, they're going to emerge. They're going to grow as far as the vines, the
yeah,
leaves, the tentacles even. But the question is gonna be how much pea production I get, and then the quality of those peas. That's gonna be
yeah.
the my weather may intrude on that, even in Chicago, Illinois. So
But you
that's
know,
the thing we're testing for. Because what I was gonna say was, even if they failed, I'll just put some, pole bean seeds behind it. But the trick is that I'm gonna have some growth. So it's kind of like, how much time am I gonna give to the wait and see? I'm committed to it because they're in spaces that, I have plenty of other spaces to grow on trellises for my summer vining crop. So I feel like I'm good.
yeah, and I mean that's the whole idea of it too. Is what else can you get in there? How is it going to work? You
Mhm.
know, and I like the way you're thinking. Is like, is the quality going to be good? Because you
Mhm.
know, I mean, I have no doubt you're going to get peas. And if you planted them right and you know, I think your weather where you are, you could very well have a cool summer that would allow something like that to thrive. Whereas like if we had a cool summer, it's still too hot. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hit or miss, but
Yeah. Well,
so
maybe the first person that hears this that's also on the Backyard Gardens community garden on Facebook, tag me in a post and ask how are the peas doing because they won't be producing anything, but they'll be up. If they're going to come up, they'll be up by the time this episode airs.
yeah.
So let's just do a quick check in on those. It is definitely a informed and strategic move that I made when it came to planting, because the reality is I've had poor luck planting peas in the fall. So if I don't give it a try now, it'll be next year, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I wanna tr
which
Go ahead.
is growth for me as a gardener. Normally, I'd toss it. Like, I'd
Yeah.
be better luck next year, right?
Yeah, I'm getting pretty bad about digging my heels in about certain crops, and I admit it. I know it's a
It is
problem.
a temperamental crop too, just to note that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and if I was to give something else, I would say pole beans. I mean, plain and simple, they're quick to come up, they produce heavy, and again, it's the perfect time of year for it.
I'm so glad that the split screen didn't catch my arm as it went up, because I put my arm up like, "Wait a minute now," but then I saw my arm on camera and I was like, "Wait a minute now." So I thought we were staying cool season,
You
because if
know,
we're not, I love pole beans as an alternative.
I mean, I'm trying to, but as
Yeah,
far as
but
like a
it's a hard one.
trellising crop,
Yeah,
I'm running out of
a rock
options.
crop, yeah.
There's not a lot of options that I can think of off the top of my head that would
Yeah.
be
I
fast
think this
growing.
is like a special note on the based on when you're listening to this episode. Actually, at any point, if you're not in a place where you think you're gonna have success for peas, I think that pole beans are exactly the next option.
Yeah.
So I accept the audible, I think is what it's called in football. You call it an audible?
Don't
You
ask
pulled
me. I
an
don't watch
audible?
football.
You sprained an audible? Something like that.
I don't
Alright,
watch
okay.
any sport.
Alright,
Yep.
well,
As a
I'm
man,
not
it's
sure what to
very
say about that.
difficult to converse with other people because they don't understand that. But
Wow.
and
We've been talking for all of these years.
I think this is a very good time to go ahead and say to bring up the AI portion of this.
Mhm.
This is something that we don't really talk about a lot on this show, but we are in the age of AI now. And what that means is if you've never used Chat GPT, I absolutely recommend you give it a shot. You know, if you're not worried about it
Mhm.
spying on you, knowing everything about you, whatever, um, you can put something in here, a topic just like that, 7 fastest vegetables to grow, and it will write an article for you. The problem is a lot of times it's wrong. I don't know if you're kind of seeing that now,
Mhm, mhm.
but it's wrong. And what that means is there's a time when anybody can be a self professed expert gardener based on an article they have written. But what we want to do is we want to kind of bring that out into the open and say like, hey, just double check what you're reading, you know, think about it because I mean, look, all of y'all are sitting here listening to a gardening podcast, and you're listening to it weekly. So, and sometimes when we get froggy and we listen to 2 episodes a week, you listen to both episodes a week. You know, it's so what I'm saying is you're not scared to kind of spend the time and understand these things. But I mean, correct if you think I'm wrong, Batavia. It's hard to grow food. And if
Mhm,
somebody's
mhm.
discouraged, let me rephrase that. It's hard to successfully grow a bountiful harvest. And it's not hard to grow a plant. It's keeping it alive and going through the stages that's hard. But if
Yeah.
somebody is down or discouraged or something and they read something like this and then it just doesn't work out for them, it can be even more of a heartache for them. And
Mhm,
that's not where
mhm.
we want to sit with this.
Yeah, and I also think that when you look at this, sometimes I'll come across a video topic and I feel like I'm well versed in that topic, so I'll skip it. But then sometimes I'll say, you never know, there could be one nugget in there that's meaningful to me, right? You know how I like to say, like, it could be someone's reminding me of the thing that I forgot. Like, I knew this thing, but it completely skipped my mind, right? So I look at articles like this and say it's not a complete throwaway, right? There's some pieces when you look at this, and we've talked about things that people have written over time. I don't know if we've taken this approach, which is the reason why I wanted you to do one more episode like this. Okay, so if not focusing on cabbage, then, for the people that can't grow cabbage in May, what can you grow instead? I think that's really useful. It's my hope that the audience does too. So, again, I do think there is a trust but verify. most everything you're reading on the interweb, whether it's from an extension service or not, or whether it's from the biggest, garden influencer or not, like, trust but verify. I probably say the person that's at your local nursery is the only one where you don't have to say, "Wait, are you really, really sure?" Like, those are gonna be the people and in the areas that I'm
Yeah.
going to probably go in a little bit blind, like, if they say it, you know, I'm buying it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's just be aware that in today's age, this AI thing can really be a problem. And I mean, when it first kind of came out, I would go on there and we were trying to find topics for the podcast, and they were awful.
Mhm.
They didn't resonate at all, so we abandoned that. But there's ideas to be used for that, and there's ways to use it. But this is not really one of them. I'm not a big fan, and you kind of see the outcome. I don't know if this was AI written, but I know that a very short paragraph with
Mhm.
nondescript information that is largely inaccurate is usually the symptoms and signs of this.
It's general enough to fit most any category. That's why I did the comparison between last week's episode in the
Mm-hmm.
list and this week's episode. It's gonna get better though, and it's gonna be harder to discern whether or not this is from some really experienced person that's giving you what they truly believe to be the fastest 7 crops, or if it's from somebody that may even be experienced and needs to submit to reach a deadline, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think the ability to, look through and determine for you if this makes sense, if this works, it's a life skill,
Well,
continues to be.
it's been 2 years really since AI came out, and from what I can tell, it hasn't really changed much. Like it hasn't gotten
Mm.
that much better. So everybody's like, "Yeah, it goes so fast, it's gonna be so great." Like I'm not witnessing that. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not really seeing that. So that's the story behind that. But the next one we got to talk about is beets. So are they fast growing?
What do you think?
I be honest, I have no idea.
Mm. Yes,
Are they?
they are. And this is kind of throwing in all the rules that we've used for this episode. So they prefer cooler weather as well, which is almost a trend in this
Yeah.
list. So they prefer cooler weather. Um, Beets are unlike some of the other things that I've grown that are traditionally grown in cooler weather. I have like questionable root formation if it's pretty warm when I'm basically sowing beet seeds. So something like by the time I get to June, I wouldn't sow beet seeds in my garden. I'd wait until later in the year when, we're going from summer to fall. That's my experience in my garden. But when it comes to like days to harvest per the seed package, they're a quick grower. And again, in ideal conditions, I think it's true to form. I'm trying to think of last year, it must have been I sowed them in May, maybe about when this episode came out, and I harvested not huge beets, but the size to be expected in August. So May, June, July. That
So
doesn't sound
70
quick when I say
days.
it that way.
Yeah, but what we were saying earlier is 70 to 90 days is about
Yeah,
average
it
for something.
fits, yeah.
The only thing that I can think of that's really outside of that is radishes. Other than that, that's about average.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so, I've seen people harvest really nice sized beets in August. Um, I don't know when they planted them. I've grown beets. I'm not a big fan of them, and actually, I have submitted to the idea of this fall. I'm going to grow like an entire row of beets, just to do it, just to see, and then I'll probably do it again in the spring to see which one grows better. But absolutely, I think it's okay. I mean, if you say so, Batavia, then I will agree with you.
But I'd also like to say, if you haven't decided which variety, let me send you some seeds because like, this is my shot to get you on the beat train, and
Me?
I wanna influence this a little bit more,
Oh
so
yeah. Send me some seeds
mhm,
so I don't have to buy them.
mhm,
Absolutely. I
mhm.
don't care what kind of beet. All beets I've
I'll
had
send
are
you some
gross.
seeds because you're my buddy, and I want you to have a good beat experience.
There we go. I will do it.
Mhm.
All right. So the next one. Dramatic pause. Action.
Eggplant.
Eggplants. Hell no.
It's and is it yours as the alternative? Because good grief. Eggplant. So I'm a no as well. I don't think it's fast.
No.
I just potted some eggplants. It's in my space every other year when I start them from seed indoors. I have great success every other year.
Yeah.
Every in the off year, I do something, and it's just like the piddly little plants. It's a beautiful plant at every stage of growth. It's unique and it's beautiful. But I mean, we're growing the food to have food, right? So it takes quite a while to get to the point of producing.
Yeah.
So
So
no.
eggplants are a nightshade.
Hmm.
And in my opinion and my experience, they have a germination rate or time very similar to peppers, which can be a little bit long. The typical germination time is 7 to 10 days. I'm thinking average of 14 to 20 is what I get on them. And they're very temperature specific. So direct sowing them now, I absolutely don't think so. I think it's the perfect time to plant them out. But as far as like direct sowing them, which is again from the way this article was worded, it seems like direct sowing. They didn't say direct sowing, but they said sowing, which is a lot different than transplanting. So that's what we're going off of. Yeah, I don't think that it's a good one. And even if it's not, if it's transplanting, it's still not a fast grower.
Hmm.
It's a heat loving crop.
Yeah.
So it's a really good crop to grow in the summer. But there's definitely other alternatives out there for it that will produce faster and you can direct sow and get faster. Do you have any idea what that would
Which
be?
ones? No. I have,
um,
like, 0 al
well, think
that's
about it. Okra,
oh, no. You have to go with, like, a summer squash, like a eggplant or
eggplant. No, not
a
an
yellow
eggplant.
squash.
Yellow squash, zucchini, those would
Mhm.
work.
Oh, that's what I meant,
Yeah, I
zucchini.
know
I
you
said
did.
eggplant again, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. It's okay.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
okra's a great one. I mean, it it takes a long time to grow, but it starts producing really early.
No,
So
I object,
here
Your
it
Honor.
is.
I object as it as an, alternative. No,
You
I
don't
think
think
no.
so? Okay.
Mm-mm, no, I'm not
So
accepting.
I will say that when we direct sow it in our yard, we typically do it, well, right around now. The heat will help it to boost and it will grow much faster. Now, I'm comparing this to an eggplant. So
Well, that's what I object to. I object to your, like, I'm gonna sub in okra for eggplant. Like, stop it.
why?
They're nothing alike. They're just both summer and heat-loving crops.
Again,
There's
remember that
texture-wise is the question of the day gonna link all of this together?
all
Like,
of this is coming to a head. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I really want you to remember this conversation. Yeah. So
Well, there's also I no.
no.
No for it being fast and no for okra being an alternative, and very it doesn't happen often, but I don't even have anything to counter with. There is no alternative to eggplant.
Squash,
Sorry.
zucchini,
Yeah.
all your
Okay, yeah.
squashes, all that stuff,
Yeah.
absolutely much faster. So all right, the final one, spinach.
I've been waiting on this one.
There's
Well,
a lot of contention with
unfortunately,
this one for
spinach,
me.
yes, for fast growing,
Absolutely.
but in May, no.
Yeah. I mean, you plant it and watch it bolt,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know? So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's now there are heat resistant varieties, but in my experience, I've not found a heat resistant variety that's truly summer heat resistant. It may be spring heat resistant, but as you ramp up quickly, you got to think again, we got germination time. So you plant it uh, April 25th, then by May 15th, you've got a plant coming and it's growing. By June 15th, you're harvesting. I have seen spinach time and time again grow into bolt, like
Mhm,
just
mhm.
immediately bolt, no harvesting time or anything.
We like to use the word stunted a lot, I've seen online. And it's basically, especially when it comes to the people planting things out, what's perceived as too early. Like spinach will stall on you for
Yeah.
sure. I had that experience last, what would have been my fall spinach, but I planted it and we were still really warm. And it was like, this is all I got. I don't even know if it would, no one would accept it as baby leaves, even.
Well, I mean, well, first of all, before I get into the next thought, do you have an alternative for spinach?
Yeah, and I've been really, so I was gonna give this for beets because they're exactly in the same family, but we basically, I said yay for beets. Chard, and I wanna love chard more than I really do. I'm falling into, because it's fast, because it's easy, because you can basically grow it at any season. Like, I want it in your gardens, and it's a pretty cool looking crop. Now, it's not one of my favorites. It's not on a top anything list when it comes to like enjoying the taste of it, but I'm working on that.
That's a personal
So
preference, though.
what's that?
That's a personal preference,
Yeah, yeah, for
So
sure, for sure. But I think I mean, it's a great alternative to something that it's not as, let's say, it's a little bit more tender, closer to spinach than, let's say, a hardy leafy green like a collard or something. So yeah, I've had experience and really good experiences growing chard all throughout summer. I feel good about you even direct sowing it as you're listening to this episode and it producing. You may find that you wanna harvest it when it's younger,
yeah.
not, maybe not quite baby leaves, but not letting it get huge because some of those leaves can get really big.
I've grown
Um
chard in the summertime here. I had a plant one year by accident, just kind of make it, and it did pretty good. I mean, it grew in the shadiest part of my garden, so that's important first of all. And it did pretty good. It was a little bit tough, like texture wise. It grew a little bit harsh, but other than that, it did pretty good, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, I agree with chard. I don't think spinach is. I think it's just a recipe for sadness. We won't use the F word. We'll just say sadness. Um, I will say this. Um, Overall, if you look at the way the article was written and you wanted to cover your bases, like what I would have said is like in my area in northern, which clearly this is a northern gardener for the most part, I would plant these fast growing vegetables, and kind of put that preface out there so that people would understand because there's in the gardening world, there's a gross generalization about planting times that's just wholly inaccurate. And it's kind of disheartening to see because it is very confusing. So, just doing something like that can separate it and eliminate a lot of confusion. And look, it's okay if you want to do something like this and you only have experience with one area. It's okay to give the experience for that area. You
Mhm.
don't have to have mass appeal for everybody. You can really focus on a certain region or something like that. I mean, I'm sure there's people, for instance, on YouTube. I know there's people that you watch, Batavia, that like don't do me any good to watch unless I
Mhm,
just
mhm.
want to watch them. And there's people that I would watch that you have no business really, doing what they do in your garden. It's just it's okay. It's okay for everybody to be different. If everything was the same, the world would be a very boring place.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about, so I used to watch a lot of people in kind of the West Coast and in the States, and their growing conditions are almost always different than mine. Different enough where it's relevant when it comes to gardening. And I always believe that there's something to steal, this opportunity to gain something if they are walking through how to grow peppers. If you remove any comments around like, trying to manage through extreme heat, most everything else they talk about when it comes to growing peppers should be able to be applied to me in my garden,
Yeah.
right? So, obviously the time frame they're growing would be different, but I'm going to copy and paste it and shift it by 4 months or something. And so that's a part of like the lens I want people to look at articles like this in. Now,
Right.
this in particular is unique because they're plainly saying fast. And I was going through it like this could have been like the top 4 fast-ish things
Yeah.
to grow,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like maybe, but yeah, I mean, I also find it interesting that 2 different articles, 2 different publications, but again, information on the internet, the only connection between this week and last week was carrots on both lists, cucumbers, and beets of all things.
Yeah, beets keep
So,
showing up, don't they?
yeah, yeah. Maybe
Interesting, right?
somebody on a crusade to get beets in people's diets.
Yeah, the beet industry is coming at you,
Mhm,
boy.
mhm.
They're gonna
Gotta watch
force
out
it
for
down
them.
your throat. Good night. Got to get them oxygen in your blood. Yeah, so it's just it's interesting to see how all of this unfolds as you go through and you read these and
Mhm.
just understand that like everything's different. I've done a lot of seed starting charts on the West Coast, and there are some places that are very similar to mine, but there's also
Mhm.
some places, more places than not, that are drastically different. And I was saying this before, when I do them, you can kind of, without really looking at like each individual plant and when it should be started and stuff, you can kind of look at like just the shape of it each month, because there's you got your 12 months, and then I put a list down for each month. You can kind of see the shape of it and how it is drastically different. And I've got a viewer on my YouTube channel at Sandy Bottom Homestead, check it out. They live in France, I think right around
Mhm.
Paris, and they always tell me their weather, and dude, their weather is very similar to mine. It's interesting to see that, because it's like I don't know what goes on in Europe. It's out of sight, out of mind, but it's very similar to see how that changes and how. So they're planting right around the same time as me, and they're figuring all that stuff out. So it's
Mhm.
interesting to see that. Um,
I have this smirk on my face because, yep, Paris is still on my list of monitoring weather.
yeah. So since you're a weather creep and you
Mhm.
you you peep, do you notice a similarity between mine and their weather?
No, it's actually well, let's see now. No, I mean, it's much cooler. I'm looking at lows in the 50s and 40s at night.
So
It
our low
well,
last night was 48, and the night
really?
before was
I
43.
always misjudge with how hot you all are, how cool you can get at
I
night.
know, it's crazy. It's this time of
I always
year.
lose track of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Mm,
interesting. So,
yeah.
okay.
Just really quickly for when we were talking about the West Coast, something that I don't know that we talk about often is it's kind of like the heat, the heat, the heat. But there's also the heat when combined with dry, like when there's not a lot of rain as well. That is the recipe for hard growing for your average gardener, your average homesteader or home gardener. Obviously, there's a lot of produce, namely a lot of fruits that are grown and produced in your Californias. But we also know kind of the way that, irrigation is set up there. And yeah, you have a lot of, growing tunnels now that are being used and a lot of steps that maybe your average home gardener just wouldn't take, So you could see where in the midst of summer, the reason why you're not going to grow, you know, cabbage in Los Angeles, you know.
Yeah. All right, we got to get to the question of the day. It's very important
Mhm,
to this episode.
mhm.
Batavia has made it more important than you can ever imagine.
I
But
have, okay, mhm.
before we get into that, let me say this. This show is sponsored by the Planter app. It is an extremely useful app. You can use it on your phone, your tablet, or your PC. I love using it on my PC. It's a very visual interface, drag and drop. It shows you the companion plantings, the combative plantings, has a ton of information in it, uh, planting dates, you name it, it's in there. And it's a joy to work with. You can make multiple designs. I use it to keep track of my crop rotation. So I'll keep a profile from last year and then over to this year, and then I'll be able to visually see as long as I follow the plan that I made. So it's very useful. They are constantly updating it. I need to reach out and see if there's any updates that have just come out so I can bring it to y'all. but there is a discount code below that will get you a discount on the lifetime membership. I believe he said it was 20% off, so it's a big deal. So check out the Planter app and use it to plan your next garden and to keep track of what's in your garden. Oh, and also you can keep track of your seeds that you have too. They have a new seed box feature, so check all that out. That's the Planter app, the Planter app, and it's available on the Google and Apple Play Store. And the bell's back. All right. So our question is more so a comment, but this is I didn't expect it to go the way it has this episode, but this one comes from our YouTube channel, Backyard Gardens Podcast, and it's on the saving money episode that we did, which people are very, very passionate about. So let me read you the comment. Forgive me if I butcher your name. It is Jaheen.
Hey, Jaheen.
There you go. It says, I think the key to saving money from the garden is you have to switch your mindset from eating what I'm in the mood for to what's available in the garden now. We're so blessed with an abundance of food in this day and age. Most people are able to eat whatever they want. I don't care if you're in the mood for pizza. If your lettuce, carrots, and radishes are ready, cook up a protein to add, and it's salad night. You have to think and eat like that is if you want to save money in the garden. Of course, we do treat ourselves once in a while, but overall, 90% of the time, the first thought is what is in the garden pantry, and what can we make from that? We rarely need more than $5 to $7 worth of store-bought ingredients to complete our meals. I love this topic. I actually look at the garden as my side hustle. We save so much money.
Dude, I just can't. What's the record? How many episodes is this where I'm just like blubbering?
4 or 5 now.
We got like 8 words into this, and I just thank you for the comment. Um, just so well done, changing your mindset. It immediately made me think of one of my great aunts that said, now this is a little bit different, but it's still about changing your mindset. It wasn't beets, but she'd eat beets because they're good for her. Everything can't be what's good to you,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, man, and second, young Ben has the ability to take me off camera, and I knew he saw as he was reading my eyes swelling up, and you insisted on leaving me here.
No,
So
not
those
only did I leave you there, but then I zoomed in on you and just paused
Yeah.
while you did what you were doing.
Well, no, I mean, it's everything that we talk about both on air and off air.
Yeah.
It depends on where you are in your garden journey. The episode we were talking about and that they're commenting on, like, the purpose of that was getting everything you can out of that garden. What was it? The theme was, garden as if your life depends on it, and
No,
you
that
can
was the
make
saving money Can your garden
Oh, was
save
this a
you
saving
money?
money one?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let me reset myself. Alright, so in that instance, when you're talking about ways to save money, as you garden and how the garden is saving you money, yeah, I mean, if you're letting everything bolt, if you're letting everything rot in the garden, of course you're not saving money, But if you're saying instead, Batavia, don't go out and get Chinese food and chop up some vegetables. I told young Ben that I had sweet potato fries, or I was late to this episode because I was fixing my lunch, which, included sweet potato fries from last year's sweet potato harvest.
Yeah.
It would have been quicker for me quite literally, for me to get in my car, go to a local spot, pick up lunch. I could have eaten it in the time it took me to even make it, right? I made more than sweet potato fries, but that's not the point here. So I couldn't agree more.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I 100% agree with that. I think it was a
Mm,
beautifully written comment, very respectful. Because believe it or not, we got some very, 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 very disrespectful comments on that topic,
mm,
which is fine. Everybody's allowed to their opinion, but as we were going through the episode, Batavia, you were saying like, well, it's not the same. It's not the same as that. And that's why I was like, just wait. You're going to see, because it's important to think about that. And it's, it's part of this whole thing that we've talked about many, many times, Batavia, where it's like, gardening is a lifestyle. Gardening is a lifestyle. We've talked about this on here a little bit. We talk about it a lot off air. And it really
Mhm.
and truly is. And, the idea of like, well, I want pizza tonight. And it's like, well, damn, I got, broccoli that's going to go bad. I need to eat the broccoli, and it's just part of that lifestyle that you go through and you make those changes. And then when it comes time to plant something and you're like, well, I want to grow cabbage. I feel like eating cabbage, but my bok choy is not the same as cabbage,
Mhm.
or my okra is not the same as whatever I said. I don't know what it was.
Eggplant. Mhm.
Eggplants,
Mhm.
but it's
Mhm.
like, but that's what I can get. And not
Yeah.
only can I get that, I can get a lot of it. Then that's
Yeah.
kind of where I was coming from throughout the episode with that. And it's important to think about because we don't always get what we want. I'm sure when you were a kid, you wanted something for Christmas and you didn't get it and you may have been a little bummed out, but maybe you didn't want that jacket you got, but I bet for damn sure in February, you're glad you had that jacket. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, maybe I want a cabbage, but I'll be damn glad when I got 40 freezer bags full of okra overflowing, to put in my chili in the wintertime or whatever you do with it. So
Mhm.
it is a mindset. And I think it's a very advanced hurdle for a gardener slash homesteader to meet and exceed that hurdle. I think it's, in my opinion, and this could be very unpopular. I don't really care. But once you hit that hurdle and you start doing that, you're like getting into like the upper levels of gardening and you understand how it works, and we've tried to focus on that a lot. And I've said this on the show before. We try to focus our meals like my wife went out of town. Ladies don't show up. It's not like that. But I'm joking. But she went out of
I
town and
know.
and she was like, we were doing groceries and she said to me, she's like, well, what are you going to eat this week? And I was like, hell, I don't know. We're going to, we'll do whatever. And she looked at me and she goes, let me rephrase for you. What vegetables are you going to get out of the garden for you and my child to eat? And I was like, why didn't you just say that? And I started going through the list and she's like, so you got enough? And I was like, yeah, we're good. We don't need to buy anything, So that was part of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, I was scrolling on Instagram.
how dare you?
S d Yeah, I know. It's the numbness, it's 2 AM, and I'm trying to decide whether or not I've had enough sleep to function throughout the rest of the day, and I realize that I haven't, but in between time, I'm scrolling, so, and I came across a entertainer that was like, "Oh, I just came from the gym, and I wanted to go and get, like, a burrito bowl," right? And then she said, "You know what? I am going to make something that I have at home, like, I have a bunch of ingredients, I can make a burrito bowl at home." And so she was going through and, it was a like maybe a minute and a half, if that, that she edited it down, of course. And so as I looked, it didn't look anything like the place that she talked about going to. Like, I've been there before, and I said and it didn't have the aesthetics of, like, some of the, like, chefs that are online cooking and preparing things, but when you she took that bite, I knew it was good. I could tell that it was good to her, right? And
She
there's
was
a
loving that.
theme that yeah, you know, come
Yeah.
on, you know.
You know.
And so there's a theme there as well, right? Even when it came to the ingredients, they weren't going to be the same. Again, I know the establishment, they don't have some of the ingredients, but, sure, put mango in there. Maybe they do have a mango salsa. Like, it works. Like,
Yeah.
it works, and she's like, "I'm gonna save myself, like, $40 because I think she's in LA. I was gonna buy something I'm gonna basically, my mom's gonna be able to eat from this too, like, she's gonna make 2 or 3 bowls or something." And I'm like, "You think about 40 bucks?" Right? Now, that probably would have been 20 something here in Chicago if she was going to get 2 bowls. So you basically I think she said something like 30 minutes she made it, 30 minutes or less. with what she already had on hand. So insert what you have in the garden, what you may already have on the pantry, and she just saved herself 40 bucks. I would have saved myself 25,
Yeah.
right? And still pretty much on theme with what she had a taste for. There's something about what you have a taste for that can, break your pocket every time.
Well, and it's one of those things. It's just it's a weird time that we live in where
Mhm.
I mean, you remember when you were a kid. Well, I don't know, based on where you live, but do you remember like restaurants were closed?
Mhm.
You could not go like on Sunday. You could lay out in the middle of the street and take a nap. Like everything was closed, at least,
Mhm.
until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And now it's not really like that. And I'm not saying the good old days were better or anything like that. What I'm saying is like we live in a time now where you can get whatever you want whenever you want. And that's really not a good recipe because it's not natural, you know. I'm not trying to be all like weird about it or whatever. I kind of lost the term that I wanted, but it's good to have like a restriction. And yeah, I want pizza, but I also got like all this work that I did that like if I don't do something about it, I'm fixing to lose all of it, and that's not something that I want to do. We grow our food for the nutrition, so why should I eat that trash because I
Mhm.
all of a sudden wanted, you know, a smash burger or something? It's like, come on, man. So I think it was great. I think it was one of those things that just kind of puts it into place. And my question to you, Batavia, is now that it's been read, some of the things that you said over the episode, and it sounds as it's coming out of my mouth, it might sound kind of nasty, but I just want to know, like, does it make you think about it a little bit different? Like some of the
Well,
about growing
for
different
those that
things?
will receive this block of time as the he's putting her in the spot, I was actually gonna bring this back around to I couldn't remember, we just talked about it, the second one, but I immediately thought, "Yep, bok choy and cabbage," like, you saying, "Hold on to that thought," absolutely made sense. And then as I continued to listen to the question and then think back or the comment and think back on it, like, absolutely. I can't believe that well, I can believe it, of course, but it was so, thorough and well-rounded of a response because there's also the idea of okra and eggplant are never going to be swapped out in anyone's restaurant, in anyone's home. It's never gonna be an alternative, but that's not the point, right? It's the what do you have a plethora of? What can eggplant, when it produces, can produce quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Same as okra. Right? So what do I do now that I have this other vegetable that's producing quite a bit? Guess what? I find ways to consume it.
Yeah, it's not like I'm gonna be like, man, I think I'm gonna have okra parmesan tonight. I'm gonna make gumbo. You know what I mean? I mean,
No, I'm gonna air fry some okra, man. I'm gonna still get that crisp, that
go for
crunch.
it. I mean, but it's like it's different. It's okay to be different, and just think about it that way. So, I think what it brings to light is it's more of a connection to your garden, through your diet and using that to your advantage, and really going through it. But before we make Batavia cry again, let's just do this, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to support the show, we already told you how to do all that stuff, so do that. Leave us a comment on YouTube. You never know. You could be like, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, Jaheen. You're We will absolutely feature you if it's well written. And you never know. If you start leaving us nasty ones, we might just highlight you so people can make fun of you. So keep that in mind too. But in all seriousness, we do a couple things on this show. We sell seeds, we provide garden entertainment. We love doing that. But also, we learn to grow and we grow for change.
And if you see me in the streets and my eyes are puffy and swollen, know that it was the day after one of these episodes because I'm that kind of crier where I'm just it's gonna show all over my face. But between then and now, see ya.